Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at an unlimited RuneCraft deck, this time Daria, because I actually have always enjoyed playing Daria decks. That may make me a little bit of a degenerate, but that's completely okay, as Daria has definitely been one of my favorite kind of decks to play ever since its inception, and it's only got better as the expansions have gone on, as far as support has gone at least. Of course, it's definitely dropped down in consistency as far as winning goes, just because other decks obviously became more powerful and dealt with it better, which is completely fine. I mean, when this thing was at its prime, it was absolutely stomping the meta. But as far as it goes now, it is just something fun to play and always something I enjoy. So we're going to get right into it and check this deck out. So as you probably noticed right off the bat, we're not running a Mystic Ring in this deck. It's definitely a card you could run if you wanted to, but personally at the moment it's just something that I don't really care about. Sometimes you'll draw it and it'll be semi-dead and you have to get rid of something you don't want to, and other times you'll draw it and it'll perfectly work. If you happen to brick triple Daria, it's still not the end of the world because you can win without even dropping a Daria with this deck, which has always been the way it has been, just because you can play out so many board cards. Ogglers and Blade Mages plus boosts. Magic Owl does a wonderful job at keeping things out, and then of course your removal cards like Glow, Magic Missile and Angelic Snipe do a wonderful job at supporting those cards in helping you reach that final victory. And really, Daria is just an insane draw engine to get really cheap fodder to just slam the board with, which is definitely not a bad thing. Unfortunately though, I do have to leave up this 3-4, mainly prioritizing the draw here to try and get some more spell boostable cards, so next time we play Magic Owl it's actually going to be fairly decent, and it's going to do a wonderful job. So start off by going for the draw, because I feel like that's definitely the way to go, and we get that 1 damage on the 5-4, meaning that if it does trade into our really low owl, it's definitely going to be taking some damage. And we will hold on to the Fates hand for now at 0 cost, save it till at least next turn. We're looking at a very promising hand. Some nice spell boostable cards, a Daria's already getting set up, and we'll drop it very quickly from here. Unfortunately we do end up with a second Daria. Not so lucky. But I mean, if we're just drawing the 2, that could still be fine. If we don't draw the second one, we could still be in this pretty easily. And this time we're really just going for it. Going as all in as we possibly can. Getting some nice spell boost, dropping things to 0. And trying to set up our hand kind of as best as we can. I definitely considered dropping the Daria here, but I didn't want to sacrifice our cheap chimeras since we do have an Angelic Snipe as well. It just would have felt wrong to completely sacrifice this whole board. Also, it'd be nice if I can use the Alt Art Daria, as that is one of my favourite ones to go. I was going to use my sleeves and leader, but I just didn't bother changing them at the time making this video for you guys. Maybe next time I'll get into that and make those changes. Forest really doesn't have a great matchup against a deck that can swarm reasonable bodies while clearing things, and it looks like they're playing a more control-y type Forest, at least from the cards I've seen so far from Unlimited. But it is weird, in the last, say, 20 or 30 games, majority have been Forest. I would say we're leaning towards a 20 out of 30 games it's been against Forest, which is pretty nuts. Obviously not just with this deck, that's just how much I've played Unlimited overall in the last few days, and it has been pretty insane. So starting off with that early insight into the extra draw power. Really all we can do at this point is draw cards. We have got another Daria, which is pretty good. Back-to-back Darias can definitely work. Although in this situation we're definitely not having any favours done for us, but getting a concede, definitely a positive. Obviously not much else they could do. Following on from our Forest matchup, we're going up against Rune. Rune, again, like Forest, is very popular in Unlimited at the moment. Definitely a deck I've seen a fair few of, so it doesn't surprise me. Although there are a lot of variants floating around, so between... oh, there's just so many. I can think of at least 5 variants off the top of my head to run with. There are definitely been a lot of Earth Rune variants. We also have seen a lot of Mysteria type variants. Obviously then there are also sub variants on top of those, but we also then have D-Shift. We have more of a tempo based rune. Ginger you don't really see anymore, so that's okay. And then of course you have good old Daria. All of which have been doing fairly well, but that's at least 5 variations without any sub variations so far, so There are so many options. Of course, you're mainly going to be predicting your rune matchup based on the early game. So, as you see here, going for the Mysteria cards obviously points to a straight up Mysteria rune deck. Very simple to predict. It's just a matter of what variation it might be overall. Which, if I had to guess, it's just going to be a pretty follower based one, which I think that was what we covered last video. Was a much more follower heavy rune deck. Not a big surprise that that's what we're seeing now, but we're looking at another very promising hand. No Daria yet, but decent spell boosted cards with some extra support in there is definitely going to be a big advantage for us. I mean, Wind Blast is going to pretty much immediately take out this 5/5. All we really have to worry about is taking out the 2/2, which unfortunately isn't going to be super practical at this point. Although we did end up with the Angelic Snipe along with the Magic Missile that we could have used, but I did end up with the Kaleidoscope Glow, which I personally decided to favour in this situation. Just because that felt like a better line of play. And we can hopefully take this board pretty easily. Yeah, not too big a problem. I mean, they're all reasonably statted followers, but we've definitely got some decent pings here, and we do have a couple of Chimeras. Even though if both aren't usable this turn, they definitely are still there. So of course we want the draw before we go for the owl. Got to make sure you get that draw in first before you just slam an owl to the board. We should actually be able to remove, I would say, the majority of this board pretty easily while setting up our own really solid board. We're actually only going to take very minor damage to these followers. Only leaving Nick. Poor little Nick on the board. So Mysterian Right and Mysterian Dragoness with no Evo. That's definitely not as big a threat as they were hoping, I'm sure. But a comfortable Angelic Snipe and Chimera is going to pretty much secure us most of this game. I mean, we're going for a full house here with Oglers and Chimeras. If they do manage to wipe this board, then we could have been in a little bit of trouble, but looks like we've done fairly well so far. And of course, the concede leads us to our victory. That draw obviously wasn't going to be enough. So as I mentioned in a previous video, Unlimited is definitely where I'm having most of my fun with Shadowverse at the moment. Rotations meta just kind of feels bad. It just isn't fun at the moment, at least for me. I've played a lot of it and it's just kind of stagnated in the last 3 months, and that's a little sad. I definitely enjoyed the previous meta before that. It definitely at least was more fun. And it's definitely let rotation shine at least. There's a lot more variation in rotation now as far as decks normally go. Of course, like I said, Forest has kind of taken a big upkeep, but it's only in the last couple of days. Usually you see a shift every couple of days in Unlimited for meta decks, and that's definitely kept things pretty interesting. So if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find this deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.